Hey guys, welcome back to the SWADE Pro Show. I'm the host, Stacy, and with me is my wife, my beautiful, beautiful wife, Brandy. Say hi.
Hi.
You got any more than that?
That's all I have.
That's all you got? Okay.
That's all I got.
She's still nervous. Okay, so in this episode, I'm not going to lie about this. The first time I heard the title, the Dixie Mafia, I thought of something completely different than what I found out. And I'm talking about, I thought it was just like a bunch of good old boys that was like, you know, drinking and cutting up. I didn't think it was an organized deal.
So the Dixie Mafia, or the Dixie Mob, is a Southern organized crime mob that mainly bullied small towns in the beginning, but eventually that grew into much more.
And according to multiple sources, they're still active today.
Wow.
Like, that's questionable. We don't know for sure. But in this episode, we're going to look at the early days of the Dixie Mafia.
Welcome to the SWADE Pro Show podcast. Please note this episode is about true crime. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guest on this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of any organization that they represent. The content is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice.
Listener discretion is advised.
We're going to start in the 1960s.
So are you talking about the Beatles and my favorite group, the Beach Boys? Maybe even a little bit of the Supremes?
Yes, think miniskirts and go-go boots. Like Stacy said before, the Dixie Mafia started out differently. In fact, according to Wikipedia, unlike the American Mafia, the Dixie Mafia was small and not connected by family, country, or origin. The members of the Dixie Mafia were loosely connected people with a common drive to make money and control the making of the money via illegal operations like influence peddling, bribery of public officials, and even murder.
So the Dixie Mafia primarily operated in the South, hence the name Dixie, in states like Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama. And they ran the cities of Birmingham, Baton Rouge, Hattiesburg, Corinth, Dallas, and Atlanta.
Some of the group's criminal activities were in more obscure parts of their major areas of operation, making the group and their activities harder to pinpoint. They were especially focused on poor sections of the South up to the 1990s, were usually ill-equipped and rarely had officers with extensive experience. Thank Mayberry.
I miss Mayberry. The members of the Dixie Mafia usually created small, seemingly legitimate businesses, such as buying and selling junk or antiques. Think about The Sopranos, where Tony Soprano had his waste management business, among others. The business provided fronts for the operators to buy and sell stolen items provided by others within the network. The business usually operated until they arose suspicion. Then they would move to another location. Special Agent Keith Bell said it was out of control, referring to the level of corruption in Biloxi and Harrison County. So much so that in 1983, federal authorities would designate the entire Harrison County Sheriff's Office as a criminal enterprise. Wow. They were doing anything and everything illegal down there, said Bell. For the money, the sheriff and the officers loyal to him would release prisoners from the county jail, safeguard drug shipments, and hide fugitives. Just about anything you think of, they were involved in. Special Agent Bell pointed out that not all of the officers were crooked, and some would help the FBI stop the corruption in Biloxi. But for a long time, Sheriff Leroy Hobbs and his Dixie Mafia associates had their way.
At the same time, members of the organization were incarcerated at the Louisiana State Penitentiary. They were running the Lonely Hearts extortion scam with associates on the street. Enter Kirksey Nix. Now, before we get into the Kirksey Nix crimes, let's take a step back and tell you just who Kirksey Nix is. He was the former boss of the Dixie Mafia. Kirksey was also a suspect in the Sheriff Buford assassination attempt and the death of Buford's wife. Kirksey repeatedly refused to comment on that. Now that we've touched on who Kirksey Nix was, let's get back to the Lonely Hearts scam.
Hey, you! If you're in enjoying this, why not give us a like and consider following us wherever you get your podcast? Sharing is caring, and we would love your feedback, so drop us a line. Now, back to the SWADE Pro Show.
Kirksey Nix, a convicted murderer serving a life sentence without parole, believed that if he raised enough money, he could buy his way out of jail. That tells you a little bit of the mindset of this guy. Here's how the scam worked, though. Inmates paid guards to use prison telephones. Then they placed bogus ads in homosexual publications claiming they were gay and were looking for a new partner to move in with. The men who replied to the return P.O. box address got additional correspondence and racy pictures. And I've also read that where some of these pictures were just torn out of magazines. But there was a catch. The scammers told their victims a variety of lies and what they needed money for before they could leave and where they were. A lot of money came flowing in, said Special Retired Agent Bell. Hundreds of victims, men from all walks of life and professions, mail carriers, politicians, fell victims to the scam. One guy in Kansas mortgaged his house and sent $30,000 to the scammers over a period of months.
$30,000?
Bell recalled. To add insult to injury, some of the inmates writing letters eventually confessed their scams to their victims and extorted even more money by threatening to out their secret if the demands were not met.
Remember, back then, homosexuality was not as accepted as it is today. If you got tangled up in the scam, you would do anything to keep your sexuality quiet. The scam brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars, money they entrusted to their lawyer, Pete Halat. Now, Pete was to take the money to Mike Gillich, who was the owner of the local strip club. Now, at this point in time, it's worth saying that things were looking to change in Biloxi. Big changes. Casinos were on the verge of entering Biloxi. One of the strong opposers was Councilwoman Margaret Sherry. She happened to be Vincent Sherry's wife, who also happened to be a local judge. Margaret Sherry was a Biloxi candidate who was very critical of Gillich operations. So Pete Halat, who would later become mayor of Biloxi, but he spent the money. And when it came time to hand over the money, he said that the cash had been taken by his former law partner, Vincent Sherry.
I understand that Pete Halat did share a safe deposit box with Nix's girlfriend at the time, and I'm going to probably butcher this name, but it's Cherie LaRae Sharp, if I said that right. It is also said about a week before the news of Vincent Sherry allegedly stealing Nix's money, Pete Halat took Miss Sharp's access from the safe deposit box and added Vincent Sherry to be the scapegoat for Pete Halat.
So the Dixie Mafia, or Kirksey Nix, ordered a hit on the Sherrys. It was later found that the evidence showed that 3 men arranged to have the Sherrys killed on September 14th, 1987. Sometime that night, a car pulled into the driveway. Vincent Sherry was shot and found near the doorway, and his wife, Margaret, was found sitting up in her bedroom. Both Vincent and Margaret were caught by surprise, it seemed, due to the evidence. Vincent was gunned down just inside the front door, while Margaret was found sitting upright beside her bed. The fact that she was found in her bedroom told the Special Agent Bell that she didn't hear anything, which means a silencer or some kind of suppressor was used and that it was a hit.
Special Agent Bell found pieces of foam-like rubber located near Vincent and in the bedroom. Later, this was proved to be the material used for the gun's suppressor or silencer. Both Vincent and Margaret were shot multiple times. The federal investigation into the Sherry's murders lasted about 8 years. And it was a slow go for the FBI and team. Special Agent Bell said it was tough trying to nail Pete Halat because he had been sworn in as mayor. Special Agent Bell would refocus on another person of interest, Mike Gillich. Gillich was used to help tie up the loose ends with Pete Halat and even Cherie LaRae Sharp. Gillich would eventually be the one to confess and confirm it was a hit in the trial in 1997. The Dixie Mafia kingpin at Angola State Penitentiary in Louisiana, who ordered the hits, as well as the men who killed the sheriffs, each received life sentences. One story we didn't mention, it is believed that a Buford Pusser, whatever, a sheriff in a small Tennessee town, fought the Dixie Mafia by himself. In fact, they made a movie about it called Walking Tall in 1973. I've not watched it, but they also made another movie, Walking Tall, in 2004 with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, in it. I don't know if the later one's about Buford or not. Buford had a one-man war, so to speak, with some of the moonshiners, prostitutes, and gamblers. Now, Buford's wife, there are many theories on how she actually died. But in this year of 2025, it was confirmed that she actually died from gunfire. Some thought that Buford killed her, if you were wondering.
One thing I'm not sure of is just who the founder of the Dixie Mafia was. Some say it was Mike Gillis Jr., and others think it was Kirksey. I'm not sure, but I think Kirksey is the only one left alive now. As of the time of this recording, he is 82 years old and still behind bars.
Now, hold on. I have someone who told me that right now he is still technically behind bars, but he is in a hospital. As of the time of this recording, he's at a hospital and not doing well. That's just what I've been told from someone who knows.
Oh, okay. Either way, he's not a free man.
Right, and he won't be.
I think Mike Gillis Jr. was the front man because Kirksey was behind bars. So Mike took his orders from Kirksey, and that is why some might think Mike was the main man. Of course, that's my opinion.
Now, I've heard that jealousy was an issue. Because, the Dixie Mafia didn't have a code of conduct or ethics. They took orders from who had the most money. And that's a recipe for disaster, especially in gangs. But unlike most gangs, they were not as organized. And to me, that's a little wild because, I hate to say, as successful as they were, they really had no structure. But they were good at what they did. The tactic of starting small and growing like a cancer from an unorganized group, if you will, growing to take over towns and plant individuals into powerful places like police and government. And from the 1960s to the 1980s, they did all of that.
Wow. It's hard to say if the Dixie Mafia is still a thing or still has active members.
That's the end of it. So here's where we talk about it. So all this took place in Biloxi, Mississippi. And knowing what we know up to date, there are many that believe the Dixie Mafia is still in charge. They still do their thing. They just hide it differently now.
Right. This weekend we were working on another case documentary, and we spoke to some retired sheriffs that once they kind of realized that there was a lot of shady things going on, they quit their job and would rather do something different that may make less money because they didn't want to be involved in what was going on, the criminal activity that was going on from the sheriffs. Especially in small towns,
when there's only like a sheriff to patrol both, I hate to say the city and the county, but pretty much, that little area. And there's corruption with that,
Well, the thing is law enforcement doesn't make that much money, so it doesn't take much to corrupt it because they feel like they're putting their life on the line for a city or a county, and then they have some businessman that says, hey, if you look the other way, I'll triple your salary.
Right. And that brings up a good point. It's a bad point, but both me and we don't know, let me clarify that, but you can make a lot of money really quick doing the wrong thing.
Right. You have to have some moral ethics. You have to have something in you that, because even good people do bad things for good reason, and it takes a lot to say no.
Right.
And if you don't have that in you, which, sad to say, most human beings do not have that in them, that very easily turn to crime because they don't think they're going to get caught. And, then their lives are made a lot easier because their pocketbook is lined.
Well, my deal is in the law enforcement's deal, which I fully support them. My deal with this is nowadays, this is back in the 60s to the 80s, people looked up to law enforcement. Now people are like, throwing everything but the book at them. They're bad. The cops are bad. Rap songs, that started out with that.
It's horrible.
And so what I'm getting at is people don't look. So the policeman or the sheriff or county, whatever deputy is like, well, they hate me anyway, so I'll just go ahead and do this. It doesn't matter what they, because they don't like me anyway. They're not going to respect me. So I'll go ahead and do the crime and get my money while I can. I'm not taking up for what they're doing, but I'm just saying I could see the slant in the lens on this.
Right. But I mean, us personally, we know a lot of really good men in blue that their heart and soul is where it needs to be.
Yeah.
But it does take a lot to be that kind of person to stand up and remember why they swore in to start with.
Yeah. But the problem is if your leader is crooked, like that guy said this weekend, then there's nothing you can do. I mean, you can stand, I guess the best thing you can do, because you can't report it because that's way higher up. I mean, if you report it,
you can try, but...
I mean, you can try, but I mean, ultimately, if the people that are in power making decisions are the ones that are corrupt, if you will, then it does, what good does it do? All you can do is report it. And I guess that's how you get it off your conscience.
Right. But I mean, who knows? I mean, you never know who to trust in that situation because you may report it to someone and then be in on it. And then all of a sudden it gets twisted on you and your life is ruined.
That's what I was saying. And you're talking about very powerful people who will have you killed. I'm not talking about in that scenario, but I'm talking, with mafias and all that stuff. They will have you killed.
Right.
But like we found out this weekend, it's not necessarily they'll have you killed. They'll have you go after your family.
Right.
Because they still want you around to fulfill what you're supposed to do.
Right.
They're just showing you how serious they are.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing, folks. It is absolutely crazy. Do you have anything else you want to add to it? Besides, be careful out there.
Be careful who you trust and don't cross the wrong people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning this really late in life, but if you got to keep your mouth shut because you don't know. If you think you know somebody, you really, really don't, and you've got to be you got to watch your six, man, because nobody else is going to do it.
That's right.
Well, anyway, this has been Stacy
and Brandy. Awesome.
So we will catch y'all on the next episode. And again, let me know what y'all think about Brandy's performance, because she's pretty close to getting canned. All it's going to take is one bad comment and she's off the, I'm not going to say payroll. Anyway, thank you guys so much and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the SWADE Pro Show. See you guys on the next episode.